Hello, everybody. Welcome to Untitled Musings. I'm your host, Lefa, and today we'll be reviewing Creed 3, Flicks on Flicks on Flicks. So, Creed 3 is the ninth installment in the Rocky franchise and the third installment in the Creed spinoff. It is Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, with a lot of the cast members returning, like your Tessa Thompson, Phylicia Rashad, Wood Harris, obviously Michael B. Jordan, and then new people coming in like Jonathan Majors and Mila Kent. This is the first film in the franchise to not have Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, and yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. So this film has managed to really break some records during its open weekend, and I'm gonna name quite a few of them because I think they're very impressive. Firstly, it had the biggest opening in all of the Rocky Creed films. It had the biggest opening for a sports movie ever. So think about all these sports movies. It had the biggest opening ever. And the third one, which is my ultimate favorite one, is that it is the biggest opening for a black directorial debut. So Michael B. Jordan is really doing them things, okay? So Creed 3 takes place 7 years after Creed 2 sort of finished. And in this third one, we sort of go back to Adonis Creed's history or past. So just sort of looking at a very important figure in Adonis's past who is now making a return. And I think the great thing about this film is that it is finally stepping away from the Rocky shadow. Without having Sylvester Stallone in it, we are now solely focusing on who Adonis is. So we're not going back to him sort of trying to, like in Creed 1 where he was trying to find himself outside of his father's legacy. We're not trying to avenge his father in Creed 2 when he has to fight Drogo's son. This is now solely his battle that is tied to no one else but him, right? So I think that not having Sylvester Stallone in this is really great because we are not, kind of trying multiple storylines. We're focusing on Adonis and then some of the people around Adonis. So firstly, I think the thing that I love the most about this film is the fight scenes. I think all of the fight scenes are unique and they give you such an interesting sort of view into these characters, what their motivations are, and where they are in life. They are beautifully shot. They were shot on IMAX, which apparently the Creed 3 was the first movie to actually shoot in IMAX. Sports to shoot in IMAX, and that sort of gave Michael B. Jordan a lot of creative license in how he wanted to shoot these boxing matches in a way that's very different, in a way that's very new, but in a way that sort of really puts us in the ring. Because as I was watching it, it felt like such a visceral effect. Like I felt like I was in the ring, I was taking the punches. Like I felt like hurt. I felt like I was leaving with that blue eye, a broke jaw, cracked ribs. I felt it. And I think the other thing I loved about the fighting scene so much was how they reference anime. I'm not a big anime fan, but it referenced a couple of animes that a lot of people who enjoy anime will sort of take notice of. One of them being Dragon Ball Z. I think he manages to bottle sort of the Vegeta Goku kind of dynamic with Adonis and Diamond Dame Anderson. He's able to kind of really focus on that dynamic, and I thought that was really smart and really beautiful and really takes us back to why some of us love Dragon Ball Z so much, but also kind of takes you into understanding the complexity of their relationship, right? which leads me to my second point, talking about the characterization of these two characters. So Michael B. Jordan spoke about how he's been living with Adonis Creed for almost 10 years. So these films started out in 2015. The first film was released in 2015. Then the follow-up came out in 2018. And then this new one, 2023. So he's been living with this character for almost 10 years. And when he spoke about why he chose to direct, he said that it was because he felt that he was the best person to kind of portray Adonis Creed. And yeah, I think he did that very splendidly. I think you get to see who Adonis was in his past. You get to see how he moves in this world, what things hurt him, what things he's trying to heal from, and what things he's trying to forget. And then Damian Anderson, played by Jonathan Majors, comes in to the fold and sort of takes him right back to where Adonis felt like hopeless, and like he couldn't do much. So now the interesting thing is that Adonis is in a very interesting place in his life. He's settled, but then this past comes back to be like, hey, you didn't actually deal with me, so let's talk about that. So I enjoyed that, and I think Jonathan Majors is able to portray this character who is not just a two-dimensional villain. When he's kind of brought in and has that sort of friction with Adonis, with Bianca, it's not a thing of, oh my gosh, this person is a bad guy, he needs to go. It's more of like trying to understand the complexity of this character, trying to understand his motivations, why he is the way he is, and also almost feeling like really, really empathetic towards him, because this is, if Damien had things gone differently for him, he would have been a different person. So kind of having a character that is literally showing you that I almost had it all, but life came at me as a Black man, so in America, so this is my other way out. I felt like Jonathan Majors was able to kind of tap into the vulnerability. Like there's moments where he could have just been like a good old baddie, but then there's slivers of vulnerability where you're like, oh shit, this person is hurting as well, Then I really enjoyed Adonis as a dad. I think the thing that I really enjoyed about the Creed franchise is basically taking us into the world of deaf and hard of hearing people, because Bianca in the first film, she starts losing her hearing, and basically has to use a hearing aid throughout the rest of the films, and she subsequently gives birth to a child that is deaf, right? So firstly, we have that dynamic of someone who uses his body as an athlete having to kind of use it as a form of communicating, as a form of being a dad, as a form of being sort of sensitive and really loving, is very beautiful to see. And I think what really I love the most about seeing Adonis as a dad is remembering that he lost his dad. He never met his dad, right? So his dad died in the ring, killed by Ivan Drogo. And then now you get to see him kind of be a father to his child, and you see the dynamic. You see how much he really reveres his daughter. He really loves her. And I think the other thing that I enjoyed about Creed is how they start changing the dynamic. Michael B. Jordan spoke about how like boxing or a lot of sports, when it comes to kind of legacy and handing down things, it's traditionally a father-son kind of relation. But here we have Amara, who is a girl, and her dad is from a line of boxing royalty. So it changes a lot of things. And she's also like deaf, so she's not even like, she can't hear. You know what I mean? Like she's deaf, but she's ambitious. Like that doesn't stop her. And I think what this movie does is like, it shows you that, deaf people are like, they are like all of us. There's nothing standing in their way. As long, it's just a matter of being able to communicate, a matter of being able to kind of interact. So I really enjoyed that. I think the strength of Creed lies in the way they're able to portray the family dynamic, So Adonis being adopted by, his his dad's wife, right? Bianca coming into the fold and how she has found this family that makes sense for her, and they building this family. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think it's able to also bring depth to characters that are traditionally the supporting roles. So you still kind of get to hear a little bit of the stories of Bianca and her music career, or Marianne, and how she dealt with being Apollo's wife and then subsequently Adonis's mom. And then you have Amara, and we are learning about what interests her and her relation to her dad and her mom. And yeah, that's beautiful. That lies in sort of kind of building layers on who Adonis Creed is, but why the Creed franchise is a phenomenal one. It's honestly a testament to Ryan Coogler. I think even if you're a person who's never really watched Rocky and you're being introduced to Creed, that is a good way to go. I haven't watched any of the Rocky movies, sorry, but I was introduced to this universe through Creed, and I think that is a great introduction because Ryan Coogler was able to kind of lay the foundation of a very solid kind of story where it doesn't feel like we need to kind of rely on Rocky, but we solely focus on Creed and the Creed legacy. And then speaking of legacy, I think this movie does that in terms of what's behind the scenes. You have Michael B. Jordan, who started out as an actor, who then kind of built his way up to being an executive producer in the second Creed, and then eventually the director in the third Creed. And this was sort of like a moving project and a moving target that was set out by Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan when they started out with the first Creed. The other thing that I really enjoyed about this is it still feels like a sports movie. Like, I don't really watch boxing, but I felt like I was watching, sportsmen. I felt like I was watching athletes being athletic and really pushing their bodies. And it's so interesting when you kind of are able to see the kind of ways athletes really push their bodies. And I think in some ways actors do that. I mean, Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors had to get into sort of a rigorous program and really rigorous training to be able to get the physiques that they got now to look like boxers. So they kind of sort of zero in on that. They hone that down to talk about how, like, it's still a sports movie. Like, as much as it's a movie about this man who's trying to figure himself out, it's still a sports movie. I thought some of the training montages were hilarious, but they were also kind of like a little bit heartbreaking, and it gave you an in into understanding who these guys are. And then lastly, I think this is an important movie because it touches on masculinity. It touches on relationships between heterosexual men, black heterosexual men, cis-het heterosexual men, and basically how, some of them are not really forgiving of each other. There's a level of betrayal that comes through there. There's a level of trying to forgive yourself for things that you've done in the past. And also just talking. Let's talk it out. Let's ask for help. Let's be vulnerable. Let's not only rely on strength. And there were moments that the movie sort of spoke about that, how like sometimes you don't have to fight. Sometimes it's about talking. Sometimes it's about understanding why you want to fight. Through the character Bianca, she was a big vocal point when it came to kind of trying to excavate why it is that you're feeling that way that moment. Because I think throughout the Creed sort of spin-offs, you sort of get the idea that Adonis is very quick to anger. It's something that he's kind of that has stayed with him for a very long time. And then he gets into boxing. And I understand that boxing is not about violence, but there is a point where you need to channel some level of rage to be able to literally plummet someone or like just pound at someone. You need, like, you can't do that when you're all smiley. There's a level of you that has to go, I am angry. But we need to interrogate why you are angry. You know, why are you feeling the way that you are? Like, their anger should be used as a tool to kind of trying to understand why you're angry, right? And yeah, and it's a fascinating movie on kind of excavating the past and how painful that can be, how confrontational that can be, and if you're not ready, how it kind of affect your present. You know, like, you need to go back to the past. That is something you need to do to better understand yourself. And yeah, that's basically why I loved the Creed franchise, particularly the third Creed. And I would say that maybe the question would be, you know, can I watch this without watching Rocky? The answer is 100% yes. Can you watch this without having rewatched the previous two? The answer is also yes. Would I recommend that you do? 100%. I think it gives you a timeline on understanding Adonis, but also understanding Bianca, Marianne, but especially kind of their relationship around or to each other. Like, yeah, their relationship with each other and how they've grown through time and time and time. Yeah. This is definitely a film for fans of anime, fans of the Rocky franchise, the Creed franchise, of Michael B. Jordan, Jonathan Majors, Tessa Thompson, of sports movie fans. Sports movie fans will also enjoy this. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Creed 3. I hope you do check it out and let me know what y'all think. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you. Goodbye.